Welcome back to another FPL video. This will be the best free hit team for Blank Gameweek 26. Some of you might have a lot of Tottenham, Chelsea, Liverpool, or Luton Town players, and you might be in a bit of a pickle this week, and the free hit is designed to help you with this chip, but also for your transfer plans to identify the best 1 week punt specifically for Blank Gameweek 26. I'll be covering the full 50-man squad and also discussing alternatives as we go along. On screen you can see the fixtures for Blank Gameweek 26. There's a few standout games in there, particularly Wolves versus Sheffield United. But let's get straight into this video. Be sure to drop a like, also subscribe to the channel, and follow all the links in the description below: the Twitter, Instagram, the Discord server, the FPL League, and also Draft Hound. All of that is there. Without further ado, let's jump straight into this video. In terms of team value, I have 104.5 million, and with selling prices, it's 102.8 million, but I'll still make this very affordable. I've got plenty of money in the bank after we complete this 50-man squad, so it should be accessible to the vast majority of you, and some of the possible alternatives I talk about can help you in order to achieve this 50-man squad and be able to make some compromises here and there, which won't affect the quality too much and your points potential for Blank Gameweek 26. But of course, we have to start with the goalkeepers, the least interesting position with the lowest ceiling, but it's still very important to nail on, even in a one single game week punt like the free hit. I'm targeting the fixture here and going for Jose Sarr at home to Sheffield United, and Jose Sarr hasn't featured in any of my videos this season, whether it's transfer tips, best wildcard, or free hit teams. Even in the team selections and deadline streams, I barely talk about him. He's been quite underwhelming this season, and in recent campaigns, he's always been up there in terms of FPL points amongst goalkeepers. But I think at home to Sheffield United, it's a great chance of a clean sheet. And with the amount of saves he can make from time to time, he could even get 7-8 points, and he can be quite good for the bonus. So let's wait and see what Jose Sarr can do in this really plum fixture. But with goalkeepers, even on a free hit, you're kind of hoping for 6 points in one game, and that's pretty much the limit or the ceiling for a goalkeeper. And the second option I'm going to go for is just a backup to sit on your bench, and that is Areola. If you have him, that's absolutely fine. I'm going to be starting him this week in Game Week 26. I've got two options actually for this blank in goal, but I think Areola is one of the better options. And in terms of other alternatives to Jose Sarr, I would definitely consider Martinez against Nottingham Forest at home, Onana at home to Fulham, and then you've also got Edison away to Bournemouth. Those are the three main alternatives, and I think Martinez might be my favourite one, but Onana has been in good form recently from an FPL perspective and is getting some decent points totals. But I'm going to go for another Man United defensive coverage, as we'll get on to in the next section. Since the winter break, Arsenal have been the most informed team in the league. 5 wins out of 5, 21 goals scored, only 2 conceded, and 3 clean sheets, making Gabriel one of the best defenders in FPL by some distance up until the end of the season. I also like Saliba, Ben White, David Raya on goal is quite good, and my only issue with David Raya in the long term is that he can't play against Brentford in Game Week 28, and he's very likely to blank in Game Week 29. But I still think Arsenal defenders are worth investment, and I would suggest a double up at this moment in time. Newcastle home isn't a great fixture, and Newcastle have been quite tough in recent seasons against the Gunners. Typically, Arsenal have a great record against them, but it has been more difficult in the last season or so, and it was a 0-0 draw at the Emirates last time out. But you would expect Arsenal to score some goals and for Newcastle to still have some opportunities, but Arsenal have limited their opponents to minimal XG, very few opportunities. And if you think about the 2 goals they've conceded since the winter break, the one against Nottingham Forest, that's pretty much just a mistake from Saliba, which Awani capitalised on, and then they gifted a goal. Once again, Saliba was at fault against Liverpool, and then Diaz forced their own goal by Gabriel. But ultimately, teams aren't creating many chances against Arsenal, and they're finally keeping the clean sheets that they ultimately deserve. They've got the best defence in the league, the underlying numbers suggest this, and they've now got the best goal difference in the division. Let's see if they can keep this form up. The next few fixtures are winnable on paper, but Arsenal always have these winless streaks and, you know, these kind of rough patches in them, and let's see if they can shake that out of their system. The next defender I'm going to go for is quite interesting because, a bit like Jose Sarr, I've barely talked about him this season, and that's going to be Diogo Dalot. He's my favourite Man United defender, but if budget is an issue, you can go for Harry Maguire as a nice alternative to him. But I do prefer Dalot for the bonus points and also some decent attacking potential, mainly through assists, and I think Dalot is probably one of the better defenders to buy right now. The only issue is that he's very likely to blank in Game Week 29, but of course on a free hit or as a 1 week punt, that isn't an issue at all. And that fixture against Fulham looks pretty decent on paper. Man United have a great record against them. Even last season, they beat them both times, and they also won the reverse fixture this season as well, and in the FA Cup last season, another victory for Manchester United, and plenty of clean sheets along the way. So Dalot for me is a very good 1 week punt against Fulham. There might even be an attack and return, some bonus points, but really even 6 points will do you just fine, and I think is a great option in Blank Gameweek 26. Now, next up is going to be a bit difficult, I think, when completing the rest of the defence, but I am going to go for Nathan Ake against his former club Bournemouth. Is Ake even going to start? I'm not so sure, because he started 9 Premier League games in a row now. Then let's see if he starts the 10th in a row in double game week 25 against Brentford, but I'm just not so sure about any Man City defender. Even Ake, who's been nailed on recently, that doesn't mean he's going to start every single game. But with Gvardiol out, this is the best chance Ake is going to have of getting those consistent starts and continuing this run he's got in that Man City team. So Ake is in here, and I do back Man City to win and keep a clean sheet against Bournemouth in Blank Gameweek 26. That leaves just 2 spots for the defenders, and later on, of course, using FPL.team, I'll talk about the starting lineup, and ultimately you'll have to bench 1, maybe 2 of these defenders. But I'm going to go for Alex Moreno. If you are looking for an Aston Villa defender in the long term, I think Pau Torres is the safest option. Luca Dean is now back, and he was subbed on around 81 minutes for Alex Moreno, and you would back Alex Moreno to keep his spot in the team for now, but for how much longer, I'm not so sure. On a free hit or a 1 week punt, I would rather go for Moreno over Pau Torres, but long term, I certainly would go for the centre back Pau Torres, because if you're also looking to Blank Gameweek 29, where Aston Villa will feature, Moreno could be an issue in certain games like that, especially once the Europa Conference League returns for Aston Villa and they have to rotate from time to time. And the last defender is a very budget enabler and friendly option, and that's going to be Van Heck, who is starting consistently for Brighton. I will not go anywhere near Estupiñán right now. His minutes are far too big of a concern, and he's arguably a sell, even though you need as many players as you can get in a Blank Gameweek like 26, and ultimately with Estupiñán, you might keep him this week but then sell in Gameweek 27. But with Van Heck, he's starting every game and he's looking really promising at the heart of that Brighton defence. You just don't know where these players come from, but Brighton have great scouting and they always unearth some hidden gems and some quality players. So that is the defensive 5. It's not the strongest defence you'll ever see, but based on the limited teams, of course, with 4 teams blanking this week and some of the best options in the game not being out of disposal, I think this 5 should do the job, and ultimately have to start 3 or 4 of them, and that could lead to some benching headaches. I talked about holding Saka even when he was on his really poor run around December, and people were saying, what are you talking about? But in the last 4 game weeks, that's 49 points for Saka and 3 double-digit returns. The other one was still a 9 points against Liverpool. So Saka has been tremendous. He's getting into great goal-scoring positions, and even when he wasn't getting the goals or assists beforehand, he was still creating 4 or 5 chances per game, and the stats were even better than they were at this time last year. Newcastle at home isn't going to be an easy game, but Saka has scored against them before, and I also think Saka in Game Week 26 is one of the best players, period, and he's never scored in 5 consecutive Premier League games, but he can still get an assist. He's on penalties, of course, and Saka has been in tremendous form. There's no denying that, and I would argue he's close to essential at the moment, especially in a game like this where you don't have Salah or Heung-min Son available. Next up is going to be an expensive midfielder, and it's very close, I think, between him and another informed player from the same team. But I'm going to go for Kevin De Bruyne away to Bournemouth. He's got a decent record against them, and I would back him to start this, but let's wait and see, because if he starts against Brentford, you might argue that De Bruyne is not a safe pick at all, and in that case, you can go for Phil Foden instead. You could even go for both of them at the same time on the free hit, but I'm going to stick with 1 defender, 1 midfielder, and of course 1 forward. I think that is the ultimate play and the optimal play as well. Now, speaking on that fixture, this highlight of the week, Wolves versus Sheffield United, I think all of us are going to go for 1 Wolves midfielder, and for me, the best one is Hwang Hee-chan due to the goal threat. He's also potentially on penalties. I do like Pedro Neto. He's very consistent and he's probably their best player overall. But in terms of FPL points, I think Hwang Hee-chan has a much higher ceiling. Pedro Neto doesn't get that many goals. He mainly gets assists. And with Hwang Hee-chan, he's the main goal threat there for Wolves, especially with Cunha out injured at the moment, playing down the middle as well. So Hwang Hee-chan for me is my favourite asset, probably in the midfield for this week. He's a nice captaincy option as a differential. I don't mind that at all. Next up is kind of, I say this very bitterly, Pascal Gross has been amazing since I've sold him. I think it's 27 points in the last 3 games. It might have been now 29. He got a few bonus points at the end against Sheffield United. When I had him, he was useless. 8 points in 3 games, but Pascal Gross has great fixtures. He's also fixture-proof either way. He's on set pieces, and even when he plays deep, he creates chances. He was looking quite poor when I sold him, and I was very happy to offload him, but sometimes you need to show patience with players, and they will reward it. But the final midfielder is mainly going to sit on your bench. You could start him because he has a good record against Fulham, and that's going to be Garnacho. He actually scored the winner last season to give them that victory right at the death. I think it was the last match before the World Cup there for Manchester United. So Garnacho is a decent differential. I would rather go for Højlund though. If you want a Man United attacker and to actually start this player, Højlund is by far the best option Man United have to offer right now in the attack. Garnacho would probably be second based on value, and he's still a decent punt to be fair at that price. You can't really go wrong. So maybe Palmer to Garnacho could be the play, but I do prefer having Palmer for Gameweek 27 and 28. And on top of that, both players are likely to blank in Blank Gameweek 29 anyway. Let's now move on to the free forwards, and this is going to be so difficult to narrow down to just 3 choices because there are plenty of forwards to choose from, even with Cunha injured and several players missing out in Gameweek 26 because of the blanks. But there are going to be 3 forwards here. I think it's the best 3 you can assemble for Blank Gameweek 26. One very informed striker does miss out, unfortunately, but based on your own taste, your own opinions and gut feelings, you can go for maybe one change in the attack, in my opinion. There's 4 forwards really that stand out this week, and I'm going to pick 3, and I want you to let me know down in the comment section below if you agree with my selections. Whenever people sell Watkins en masse, he takes it personally and does extremely well. And I've learnt my lesson from before. I've been there and done that. I'm never doing it again. For me, Watkins is a season keeper. He might not have any doubles, but he compensates for that with fixtures in Blank Gameweek 26 and 29, which also look really good on paper. Nottingham Forest at home this week, and you've also got West Ham away in Gameweek 29. They haven't won a single game in this calendar year so far. I think Watkins is a great option in the long term, and I wouldn't have any debates about him whatsoever. He's firmly the second best forward in FPL, and he's currently got the most points of any forward, and Erling Haaland hasn't caught up just yet. Maybe he'll start to do so in the second game against Brentford at home in Gameweek 25. But speaking of which, I'm going to go for Erling Haaland. I'm not going to, go a bit different and rogue and go against them. You can if you wish, because there are 3 quality informed forwards who can definitely do the job, but I would go for Erling Haaland, especially with so much money at your disposal, and I think Man City will score a couple past Bournemouth. But the final forward, I hate to say it, but I'm going to go for someone I trust a lot from last season, and that's going to be Ivan Toney. He's got 2 goals and 2 assists in 3 games against West Ham. I love it when a player has a great record against the upcoming opponent, and that always factors into my thinking for the captaincy, and also in terms of buying a player. Ivan Toney could well be my transfer this week. I was heavily considering last week to buy him for Solanke. In the end, I went for Darwin based on the 2 fixtures, which look great for Gameweek 25. It hasn't paid off so far, but Ivan Toney for me could definitely justify that move. I know it's a lot of chopping and changing in the forward line, but I certainly think Ivan Toney is worth it. The big forward I'm talking about that's missing out is Højlund. He's in fantastic form. He scored a brace against Luton Town, and you can go for him. If I had to pick one player to drop from this front 3, it probably would be Toney, but even then, I'd be very reluctant to do so. And maybe, if you want to go against the crowd and go completely rogue, maybe sell Haaland for Højlund and go for Toney, Watkins and Rasmus. That could be the way to go. Of course, I do encourage you to leave your thoughts down in the comment section below. But let's now head over to FPL.team, talk about the starting 11 and the captaincy, and also talk about more alternatives in each position. In goal, I would go for Jose Sarr, and the back 3 is Gabriel, Dalot and Ake. The midfield 4 is Saka, De Bruyne, Hwang Hee-chan and Pascal Gross. And the front 3 is Haaland, Watkins and Toney. The bench is also quite decent with Areola, Garnacho, Alex Moreno and Van Heck. You could even start one of those defenders instead of Gabriel. That might be the optimal play for Blank Gameweek 26. I've got 1.6 million left in the bank. If you can't afford this, then the alternatives that I'm going to suggest right now could help you in order to achieve the rest of the 50-man squad. So in goal, apart from Jose Sarr, there is Martinez, Onana and Ederson in that order. In the defense, I'd also consider Nuri, Maguire and Pau Torres. In the midfield, there are so many options despite the likes of Heung-min Son and Salah missing out. I've got Pedro Neto in there, Adingra, Foden, Douglas Luiz, Bailey, Odegaard, and even Bowen could be a decent shout this week. But I'd mainly be looking at Neto and possibly doubling up on the Wolves attack, Adingra and Phil Foden, of course. And as for the forwards, Højlund I mentioned already, you could go for him still, perhaps over Ivan Toney. There's also Alvarez and Moniz, I think. If you want a budget forward that helps you maybe go for 5 midfielders and afford a certain player that you don't have the funds for, Moniz could be a very nice enabler. He could even start for you and get something at Old Trafford. But really, in terms of forwards, it's these three on screen: Haaland, Watkins, Toney, Højlund and Alvarez. That's the top 5 in terms of, at least on paper. Football isn't played on paper, but they look like the strongest options in the forward line this week. In terms of the captaincy, Erling Haaland is projected to score the most points, but I have to say Watkins is very tempting. Even Toney against West Ham is a nice shout. Saka's form can't be ignored. And you've also got Hwang Hee-chan or any Wolves assets, but I think Hwang Hee-chan is the best captaincy option from their ranks because of his high ceiling and the bonus points potential. Pedro Neto doesn't get that many double-digit hauls. Maybe I've just jinxed it, but that is something to definitely think about when choosing your final captain. So let me know what you change with this free hit squad. Would you bench Gabriel? Would you captain somebody else? And also, would you go for Højlund instead of Toney, or maybe another striker instead? Perhaps go without Erling Haaland entirely. But thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it or found it useful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for new. Let's try to get this video to over 200 likes and let's keep on pushing towards 23k subscribers and beyond. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and check all the links in the description below for the Patreon, Championships Discord server, the FPL League, and Draft Hound. All of that is there. I wish you all the best of luck for Blank Gameweek 26 and the rest of the season, and I'll see you next time.